Hi everyone. Now we are going to discuss about the template. So using the template we are writing a program which can be used for a mini data type. Let's say here we have given a addition program. So this addition program can be work for any kind of a data type like the integer or the float, right? So this is a general idea about a single function can work with many number of data types. Right, so that is called template programming. So template programming is generally used for writing a generic program. So the meaning of the generic program, that a program which can work with any data type, right? So it's a general program which can be used for any type of thing, right? So here I have given, as I said, the addition program. So one of the program I have written here, add function, its job is to add the two integer value, right? So here I have a argument a and the b, right? So these two arguments are simply added and its sum is simply I am displaying here as a result, right? So if I want to add two number, I have to write such kind of a function, right? And after some time, if I need a float addition of a two number, then I have to rewrite the same code again like this, right? So for a single operation, let's say this one as a add, I have to define two different function for two different data type. But with the use of template programming, write a single function, a single code which can be used for adding a multi different type of data type, right? So this is what the simple idea about the template programming. So it is basically used for reusability of a code. A single code can be utilized more than once time in a program. So here I have a few things before going to the detail about this. So first thing is the template class. So what is the template class? So as the definition says, the template class is used to create the template object or the variable, right? So like we are creating a simple class as a user defined data type, and we are creating its variable, which we always says that a variable of a class or simply an object. So similarly here we have given a template as a keyword, and from this template we are creating the class. So here the example is given. Here just write it down, template, and in the angle braces write down class space t, right? So here t is a template class and a and b are the variable of this t class. So right now this t is not a simple class, it is a template class, right? And at the runtime this t can be converted into integer or the float. So how we are converting it, we will see. So basically, in order to write a template program, we need to create a template class by using this syntax. After creating the template class, we can create the template variable like this, the t space a b, right? Like we are simply creating a variable int a comma b, right? So in the same way we can create a template variable, right? Another basic thing is the function template, right? So function template is a function which uses the template variable as its argument. Here again the example is given, template t. Here we are creating a template class t, and here ta and the tb, right? So these are nothing but a and b are the variable of template, right? So whatever the template variable it is adding, it should be stored in a sum, right? So now this a data type is t, b data type is also t, so sum data type also be t, and then simply we are adding it, right? and whatever with the sum we are displaying here, right? Now the next question is how to execute the function template. So just define a main, take a variable a with a 10 value, b with a 20 value. Now I want to add two numbers which are the integer one. So if I want to add two number which are integer, then I have to specify before the function name while the calling the add function, right, in this way. So if I want to do the addition of two integer number, I have to write int angle brackets like that, or if I want to add the two float number, then I have to write it down like this. So here a single add function can be used for addition of integer number, float number, or it can be used for the double as well, right? So let's just check whether it is working or not, right? So just go and create a new file, just start writing. So first just include the header file like this, has include and iostream, then using namespace std, right, and then simple class. No, right now we just simply see how a simple template program will work without the class. So this is my code. So here it's a template class declaration, and then here this is my template function, right, and the code is like that. Now the next part is the main part. So simply copy it and paste it. This would be the small I integer, right? So within the main I have considered the two variable. Just wait a second. Editor of some. Let's just include some font size. Yeah, 18. Right, int min, and then integer variable a and b, and which we need to pass to the function, right? So for the integer we are writing like this, and for the float addition we are writing like this, right? So let's just try to run, right? So we need to save this file. So let's see, template.cpp IOST. Right, so here the answer is 30 and 30, but we don't know what 30 and 30, right? So here just write it down, some and del. Okay. Let's just change this value as 10.2 and 20.3. Okay. Again run the program. So here we get, so first of all we have called the integer function, right? So this integer addition 10 plus 20 as a 30 it is given, and for the float it is 10.3 and 20.3, so float addition is 30.6, right? So here using a single function, so see here in this program I have a single add function, and which can be worked for two different data types, right? So this is what the template programming. So now we need to use this template programming in a class, right? So if you're using this template function or the template variable to define a class, right, then we are saying that class as a template class. So the definition says a class template is a collection of template function and the template variable. So here I have another example, right, to define a class. So let's say I have a class called ABC. I have a variable of template t of a, void increment as a function, and t of x as its argument. So here I want to define a template function. So template function is nothing but a function which is having an template variable as its argument, then it is known as template function, right? So this is the template function. So here in this class ABC I have a template variable and the template function, right? So now this whole class, right now I can say this is a template, right? So by using a simple template, right now I have to execute the program, right? So let's just define another template. Let's just copy and paste it, remove the unwanted data, and here the function we don't need, right? So just copy this class code, right? So class ABC, the variable under the public section, the void increment function, and then this much. So now the next job is to execute this increment function in a main program, right? So in order to execute, what we are doing, we are simply creating the object of class ABC, obj, right? And then we are writing obj dot the function increment, right? So here right now we don't have any value, so pass the argument as the temp. So this much we're doing generally to execute any kind of a program, but right now we have to specify, or we have to tell the compiler that this particular increment function is going to execute the this increment function is going to execute the simple integer addition. So earlier in our example, as we have specified that if I am going to add the integer value, then I am specifying int within the angle braces. Similarly here, if I want to execute, I have to specify that this is an integer addition, but there is a little bit of change. While you are creating the object, here itself you have to specify its data type. So here I am creating the integer object, right? So when you are doing the class template programming, at that time you have to use the integer or the data type specifier before the object, right? But if you are doing a program without using the class, then we are specifying the data type before after the class name, right? So this is what the simple difference between the class template and the function template, right? So let's just save this program and name it as template2.cpp and save the program. Now just execute it. it is simply saying 42, 48, 49. I don't know what is this. Let's see. Handle. Right. So sum plus a. Again it's a 42, 48, right? So this is not the result which we had desired, right? So here a simple mistake is that we haven't specified the value for the a. We don't know what is the value of a, right? So it's just simply adding the garbage and this 10 value, right? So within this increment function, let's just define the a value as 10, or you can take from the argument, right? Means another argument, right? So now execute the program, right? So here the value is 20. So 10 plus 10, 20. Let's just change and do it as 20. Yes, it is working, right? And also try, let's just give a 5, 20.5, whether it is executing or not, right? So it is adding the two value, but it is considering it as an integer value, right? Not the float value. So now if I want to do the addition for the integer one, I have to write, or I have to create an integer object. If I want to go for a float addition or the float incremental, then I have to define again the another object which should be a float one, float, and the object name is right now object 1. So here we just specify .3 and let's just check. So first output will be the 30, second output will be the 30.3. It is not working. Okay, and the time of calling we haven't specified that it is object 1. That is what the problem. Yes, so the result is 30.3, right? So if you're able to understand this much of thing, then the any kind of a template programming you can write, right? So the most important thing is when you are creating a template function, this is what the syntax you have to remember, right? If you're going for the integer, then you have to write integer like this. If you're going for the float, you have to write like this. So in place of integer float, I can write the double character as well, right? But there is no meaning of adding a character with a character, right? So for that reason, we are just simply going for the integer value addition, right? And for the class, this is what the syntax which you have to remember, right? And if you are able to do this much of thing, it is okay, right? Now the next question is how many variable we can consider, right? Can we consider the two template variable in a single class? Yes, we can consider it, right? So let's say I have a requirement like this. Let's just copy this code and create another function, right? Let's just forget about this template. I don't have any template variable in my program. Okay, I don't know what is t right now. Just simply remove this t needs, right? You to remove this one as well. So let's see, here I have int x comma float y and equal to this much, right? And I can create p equal to 2.3. In the class, just create two variable int a, yes, and float p, this much of thing, and the sum as 1. Here itself just create it integer sum 1, and for the float addition sum 2. Right. So now here what I am doing, I am adding this x argument value with the a and the y argument value to the b, and I am storing the result to sum 1 and sum 2 respectively. So sum 1 will store the integer addition and sum 2 will store your float addition, so plus p, right, and this one, right, make it as a sum 2. So this much of code. So this is the class ABC with the data member as a, sum, b, and sum 2. I have a function increment with the two arguments, one is x, one is y, and two different data type. And here I have a sum and sum 2, right, for the addition of integer and the float. And finally I am displaying the result. So how to call this function? First of all, you have to create the object. Next, the object dot increment. So it says public void abc increment function, and it required two arguments, int x and int y. So for the x value I am just passing 10, and for the y value I am passing the float value, so this much of thing, right. So this is a simple program. Make it template 3.cpp, right. So just execute it. It says, what's the error? Oh, the slash. So here the addition is this much. So let's just cross check what is the addition. So a value is 10. Here the y value is 10. Sorry, the x value is 10. It is copied here and added. So 10 plus 10, 20. Right. So for the sum 1 is 20. For the sum 2, your 11.1, this value is copied over here, and then 11 plus 2, 13, and 1 plus 3, 4. So this is how it is stored, right. So if you want to convert the same program into the template one, then how I can convert? So for that, in a program, earlier in our program, here and here, for the template programming, I am using either a function to be work for the integer variable or a function to be work for a float variable. So whenever I am writing the integer, these t variables are replaced with the integer, right. So at the runtime, these are converted into the int, this t also converted into the int, and this t also converted into the int, and they are performing the integer addition, right. Similarly, when I am writing the float, again these are converted into the float, int a, and here it is also converted into the float, and this sum also converted into the float, and they are doing the float addition, right. So these are happening at the back end, right. But When you're specifying this int and the float, these codes are being converted, right, and it is being replaced with this t variable, right. So just come to this program. So right now in our class we have two different variable. One is integer variable as well as the float variable. So for that, what I need to do, I have to create, instead of a single class, create two class of template type as t2. So right now I just consider the t1 as an integer, t2 as a float, or the other way you can consider, right. So wherever in my program, in the whole program, I have an integer, I am just replacing with the t1, right. t1 here also int is written, so I am replacing with t1. And is there any other places? No. Similarly this t2 I am replacing with t2 and the t2, right. So this much of code. Next thing, to call. So right now if I am calling this, it will show the error at the object, right. So this object creation time, the first t1, here I am considering t1 as an integer, that's why first of all I am writing int, and then second one I am considering for the double, so I am writing double, not double, it's a float, right. And now I just compile the program, and yes, it is working, but it shows the same result. Let's just change to 5 and make it as 33. Recompile and run. So 10 plus 33 is your 43, and 11 plus 2.5 is 13.6, right. So in the exam you have a simple question, a direct question which can be asked to you, right. So only thing you need to do, remember this syntax, and for the function template this syntax, nothing else, these two things, and rest of the thing you know how to define a function, how to define a member variable, and how to define a class. So whatever you have learned till now, just write it down as it is, right, and according to your program, the places where you need to change the integer, just replace with that particular template class, and whenever you need the float, just change it. If in a program it is asked the character one, just do change in the same way, right. So this is what the template programming, and this is a sure short question which is most of the time asked in the paper, right. So you have to do remember it, right. So here the last thing about how to define a function outside a class, right. So let's just copy this, right. Within the class just keep the argument, just delete it, right. So if I need to define this increment function outside the class, then I am writing like this, right. So here I am writing the void abc and colon, and this will work fine, right. But I need to change something else as well, so just check with the error what is this, right. So here I have a problem, so here I have to specify that it is working with the template t1 comma t2, sorry, t1 and t2, right. Again the problem, so here again we have to write, I think, this one, template. Yes. And now we're ready to go, right? So if in the question it is asked that they define a class define a function outside the class, then you have to define the function of a class like this, right? So the little bit of addition is this one and this one. So these two things you have to add it, right? So the same programming right now you can apply for the constructor, destructor, operator overloading, function overloading, casting, inheritance, right? Any places you can do it, right? So this much of thing for the template. Next we will see